Why you're not live? Everyone
Yeah.
freaking knows you're not live. Why are we treating people like they're not intelligent? We all
Hello and welcome to episode 92 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is the marketing and the F. This is what you decide. As you're probably wondering, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I'm your host, Ian Truscott, and this weekly podcast serves as my excuse to chat with marketing friends, old and new, that I've met through my career as a marketing leader and trusted advisor, and hopefully share with you some marketing street knowledge that my guests and I have picked up along the way. Come say hello. We are Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn. This episode was recorded on Friday the 10th of December. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've had a good week and you are well, safe, and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. If you're a regular listener, you'll know that Jeff is away until the new year. I have a wonderful guest, Nora Sudduth, founder and CRO of Hello Audio, and Robert Rose, my friend and content marketing guru, is in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar. Right, let's get started, shall we? If you're a regular listener, you'll know that at this point I'm normally joined by my chum, Jeff Clark, who's travelling for his holidays. And for his fans, I can report he has safely arrived in Europe. So with Jeff away, I have the Rockstar CMO penthouse studio to myself, and I get to inflict my thoughts on you. This week I want to talk about the brand story we tell, and specifically, what is the story our audience needs us to tell? Or maybe to flip this in a more Seth Godin direction, how do we support or influence the story the buyer tells themselves? Often, like a lot of marketing, we talk about our product and services and build the message and story around that. We justify its features, talk about what we do, how it is leading, of course, and talk about our view of the problem we solve. From our tagline, elevated message, to our messaging pillars, we build this from an inside-out perspective. And this isn't just about the stories we tell about our products and services, but also our values and people. It's a story about us. But what does the audience need from our stories? And more specifically, what does the buyer need? Especially as we share, often on the show, the buyer is consuming way more content before they come into contact with you. In developing our content, quite rightly, we talk about addressing customers' pains and being the best answer to their questions. Well, the buyer is trying to make a decision. This is their first problem or task. Regardless of what they are buying and the business pain they are trying to solve, making a decision is their immediate pain. Consider that Gartner and Forrester earn over $50 billion helping companies make decisions, and the ROI calculators, buyer's guides, and syndicated analyst content and influencer content always performs well in B2B campaigns is because they are serving a buyer trying to make a decision. Even in B2B, our buyers are making an emotional decision. There are careers and peer prestige are on the line. Being like everyone else doesn't help with that. For example, at the start of the pandemic, marketing went all in on empathy, but this came at the expense of any kind of differentiated messaging, as everyone was doing it. To that point, we normally focus the story we think the buyer wants to hear on tasks, functions, and business pain, and we design our personas around job function. And if we're a bit cleverer, we cluster around their needs. But what about how they feel? For example, the story you need to tell a risk-averse IT decision maker could have way more in common with what a risk-averse marketing stakeholder needs to hear than if you define these personas based on job title. When we talk about empathy, let's have some empathy for the person who has to make the decision. And we can dive into personas probably on another week. And maybe, and whisper this in your boardroom, the most helpful thing your content can do for them, and ultimately for your company, in the long term, is to make it clear you are not for them, making the decision easier for them with one less choice. And also, you'll save each other a great deal of time in a procurement process discovering there's a bad fit. Or if you do get it across the line, your sales team may high-five each other over success in an account that was won against the odds, but you've put a ticking time bomb into your customer support and success program. In content marketing, we talk about being helpful and useful, and the most useful thing we can do is to help with this decision. So the first order of business is you need to be different. Explain why and how. And if you will pardon me using the second word of the year from marketing in 2021 after empathy, to do this authentically, to reveal to the buyer who you are and what working with you will be like. Maybe you are a bit too bleeding edge for them. And that's okay. To be different means some people won't like you. And as I said, ultimately, that could be good for you both. That's my thought for this week. Think about the story your buyer needs to hear and you need to tell, and help them make a decision. And with Jeff away, I get to choose the tune this week. So for the line, what if I say I'm not like the others? I'm going to go with The Pretender by the Foo Fighters from 2007. Fabulous bit of the Foos there. I once met Dave Grohl in his favourite bar in DC, an absolute gent. Anyway, that's enough from me and about me. On to my guest this week, Norah Sudduth, co-founder of Hello Audio. She is a leading marketing and conversion strategist who has helped businesses sell over $500 million worth of products and services online. She's also designed several courses, coaching and certification programs that have generated millions more. Nora has over 20 years of experience working with startups to Fortune 500 companies and everything in between, from marketing positioning and messaging to offers and sales strategies. She's consulted on thousands of marketing campaigns to help businesses have authentic, compelling conversations with their clients. I'm a huge fan of audio, really intrigued by what the Hello Audio product can do, and delighted to have Nora on the show. Hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi Nora, welcome to Rockstar CMO FM. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And we find you in Indiana, correct?
Yes, just north of Indianapolis, Indiana, a little suburb called Carmel. So it's not Carmel by the sea in Carmel, California. It is Carmel by the Corn here in Indiana.
Nice, very nice. And for listeners that aren't aware of your work, Nora, tell us a bit about yourself.
Awesome. I am actually the co-founder of Hello Audio. I came from corporate, so I've got that corporate background, 15 plus year career there, and I've now helped sell over $500 million of stuff online. So that's me.
I think that's amazing. I mean, I've never kept that kind of track of things that I've helped sell, as a marketer over the years. I've spent most of my time marketing technology. So probably some of those enterprise deals, maybe I could come up with. That's a good number. I like that. And you founded Hello Audio. So tell us a bit about what does Hello Audio do? I'm intrigued.
Oh, Hello Audio. We specialize in private podcasts. We do public podcast hosting as well, but really where we shine is our private podcast hosting. And I don't know, sometimes people aren't familiar with what private podcasting really is. A lot of folks know what public podcasts are, and that's what we typically see is what we're listening to now. The biggest difference between a private and a public podcast is that public podcasts are available for anyone to subscribe to, right? They're open to the general public. You can go on all of your podcast directories. You get to search for it. We subscribe. But private podcasts, you get to control who gets access to it and for how long. So it's really meant to be exclusive. You can use it behind an opt-in. If you wanted to get someone's email address in exchange for a private podcast, it's something that people could pay for if you wanted to podcast your course or podcast some other premium content. But that's the biggest difference. It's more controlled who gets access to it and for how long.
Oh, cool. And so I guess it'd be crude to say as a B2B marketer myself, it's like a webinar, but in podcast form in that you register for webinars and stuff. So you'd register for a podcast.
Yep, you can. You can register for a podcast. You can actually podcast your webinar, and I can talk about that because we've had clients do that, and they get crazy conversion rates on the back end.
And do people subscribe to individual episodes, or they subscribe to the whole thing, and that keeps
the whole feed? Typically.
Okay.
Yeah, but we at Hello Audio, we do something kind of cool where we actually provide your ability to unlock and lock episodes based on individual listeners, which is what general podcasts, public podcasts, you can't do that. It's the same content for everyone.
Yeah.
But with private podcasts, you get to control what episodes people get to hear. And so therefore you could give someone a preview if you had a membership site, or maybe you had 30 days of meditations, a product, an audio product. You can give someone a quick preview, and then they would pay, and you can unlock the rest. So it's usually by feed.
Nice. And can people access? I mean, it's like some of the paid podcasting platforms they're trying to bring in on Spotify and stuff, isn't it? Where you can pay for by subscription, but this is more of a corporate. As a B2B marketer, I could then use that as part of my nurture and invite people to podcasts. And I see, yes.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can use private pack. The one difference between us and how some of these other private subscription-based models, where we don't take a cut of your profits. So, unlike some of the other, like Spotify and Apple started doing this, and there's other platforms that are out there.
Yeah.
We're not taking a cut of what you're charging your people. So you get to control all of your profits, who gets access, all of it. And you can, private podcasts can be used on the front end for marketing and also on the back end for fulfillment. And there's lots of other things in between that are really great use cases that our users have done.
Right. So you could run a support podcast, for example, talking about your product, new features and stuff like that. I mean, I'm obsessed with B2B marketing technology. So I'm just thinking about that scenario. So so you could have a technical community. They get a private,
you can do updates. So you can let people know what new things have happened. You can onboard new clients, audio onboarding. So because no one's logging into your membership site and watching your videos. Let's just call it what it is. No one really wants to do it. But if you give them a private podcast, whether you're onboarding a client or even employees, it's a great way to be able to communicate, have a private message from their supervisor, in there. There's so many use cases that you can use it for.
Right. That's cool. Well, that sounds exciting. I mean, Hello Audio sounds interesting. So that's on that. And where would people find it? I mean, I'll ask you later about all the links, but is that Hello Audio?
helloaudio.fm. And there's no credit card required. You can just sign up for a free trial and just test it out. Have fun with it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was intrigued. So before we started recording, I was intrigued by Hello Audio. So that's why I've let you sell the platform, because obviously I'm interested in podcasting. That's what we do here. And one of the things I've heard you talk about before is the intimacy of audio. Why do you think it's so important? Why would you say that podcasting, private or otherwise, is so much better than printed or any other way that you might communicate?
It's a different channel. It's a different medium. And what you're able to communicate truly comes across. We talk a lot about branding and marketing and, what our site looks like. And but a lot of times we don't think about what our brand sounds like.
Yeah.
And what better way to do that than with audio and your intonation, right? All of the ups and downs and really your passion comes through. Now, granted, some people are amazing writers, not everyone, but some people are amazing writers. And they're able to convey that emotion. But man, there's really nothing that does it quite like audio. And audio really allows your people to take you on the go, right? So if we want to talk about the main benefits of audio and why we're seeing it completely blow up, right? We've seen Clubhouse. We've seen so many things happen over the last 18 months, especially with the pandemic and all the things. It's convenient, right? I don't know anyone whose audience isn't on the go. Right.
Yeah.
And your content truly should be too. And by using audio, think about it, you're now unlocking all of the hours of the day where they're not sitting here at this little box on the screen, where they're, looking at the screen all the time. With podcasts specifically, you're able to hit play, stick your phone in your pocket and just go about your day. And now you're able to not only increase reach, but with private podcasts and being able to tailor messages based on individual subscribers, which is really, we're really talking about kind of the world's first audio CRM and podcast personalization. Now it's not even just reach, it's also relevancy. So now I mean, this audio marketing is it
Mhm.
really, if you're not doing it, get on the bus, get on the train. The train has left the station.
No, I really like it, and I agree with you because I mean I'm a big fan of podcasts. I mean, if you follow me on social, I'm always talking about other people's podcasts. I'm always sharing about other people's podcasts on this podcast, because I mean I try and walk an hour a day, and that's my podcast time, right? I can't, for some reason I can't listen to podcasts and work at the same time. I can do things like wash up or cook or
Mhm.
any of those things, or walk or exercise, but I can't work in podcasts. But you're right. All that time when I'm not on the screen, I tend to be listening to something. And,
Yep.
there's one of the guys that's going to be on the show in a moment, Robert Rose. I listen to him while I'm cooking, and he's my Friday. I'm always listening to him on a Friday. So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and people make time. They also expect you, don't they, on certain days, and they get that. They feel like they know you because they listen to you. And I think it's that level of intimacy that you get with audio is so different, isn't it?
It's so different. I mean, if you think too, I mean, people are literally, by putting their earbuds or their
Yeah,
headphones on, they're closing out the rest of the world,
yeah,
and you're able to be in their ears, in their
yeah,
head, right? So
yeah,
your voice, listening to your voice just creates a different type of
yeah,
dynamic than when they have 25 to sometimes 100 different tabs open
yeah.
and they're going from one thing to the next, right? It
Yeah.
just doesn't create that type of
No.
intimacy or strong relationship
Yeah.
or connection. Really, this is about connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that's stronger than with video? I mean, the problem with video is that you have to watch it. I mean,
Right, and how many times
stupid
have
thing
we
to
clicked
say.
a video, but then we're doing something else,
Yeah.
right? Or we're
Yeah.
multitasking. Very
Yeah.
rarely when I do user studies and
Yeah.
I see people watch videos, they click the video, but then they immediately start multitasking. Very
Right.
rarely are they ever solely
Mm,
focused and only doing what that
mm,
they're doing on the video. So
mm.
yeah, sometimes, and I'm not anti-video by any
Yeah.
stretch of I love video. I think
Yeah.
it's great. But it's not always convenient for us to
Hmm.
listen to. I mean, even look at the course creation space,
Yeah.
depending on what study you read, right? Course completion rates are anywhere from 3%, which is abysmal, to
Yeah.
maybe 20%.
Yeah.
And why is it? Because we're making it too damn hard for people to listen to your stuff.
Mm,
Why are we making it so hard? I mean, everyone listening to this has something to say. You have a
mm,
message, you have
mm.
something to get out to the world, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's about your product, your service, or
Yeah.
something that's important to you. Why are we making it so hard for
Yeah.
people to listen?
Yeah, yeah. And one thing that struck me there is, I think from Marcus's perspective, like where you're talking about why we make it so hard. The reason why we make it so hard is because we want data, right? So we put our content behind a gate, or we want video
Mhm.
because we can see on YouTube the number of views. The problem with podcasting, and I think a lot of podcasters share this, is the data is quite poor. It's very hard to get an understanding. So do you guys solve that problem for marketers? Because that would be important too, isn't it? It's that whole attribution thing, to know who did it and all that stuff.
Yes, and so this was really important to us
Hmm.
as product creators because we come from this space. We
Yeah,
are
yeah,
marketers, we
yeah,
are entrepreneurs,
yeah.
and so each of our private feeds can be tied to a specific email address.
Right.
What that allows you to do then is to see, all right, did Bob watch this
Wow.
or listen to this
Yeah,
episode? And you
yeah,
can actually take triggers
yeah.
based on their listener behavior. So if
Hmm.
I downloaded and activated a specific feed, or if you
Yeah,
put me in your private podcast for your launch, right?
yeah,
And all of a sudden, I listened to your webinar episode, you
yeah,
should tag me in your CRM, or you should give me a
yeah.
specific tag because now I have a different awareness level in the
Right.
pipeline than
Yeah.
some other listener. So, yes, by individual email address, you can tell listener behavior.
Yeah, nice. I like that. I'd love to know the email addresses of both of my listeners. No, I'm joking. But anyway, back to you. You're talking about your background a little bit there, and developing this product and becoming an entrepreneur. But you've got a really interesting career, from marketing technology to IT. You've helped a wide range of organizations with their marketing strategies. What inspired you to get into marketing?
Oh, that's a great question. Because at first it wasn't on the radar.
Hmm.
I mean, I was super hardcore technical. My first degree was in computer science. Like,
Yeah,
talk about total nerd.
yeah.
And I loved it. But the more I got into kind of the technical aspect of it, and
Hmm.
then I did UI design
Yeah.
for a number of years in project
Nice.
management and started getting into the business. But what drove me ultimately
Hmm.
was I'm obsessed with customer success.
Wow.
Obsessed with
Yeah.
customer success. And
Yeah.
so, what's the best way to ensure that your customer has success? Well, be obsessed with your product or your
Hmm.
service and make it the best possible, make it world class,
Yeah.
right? And so but how do you get people in the door? You can have the most amazing world-class product or service, and if no one's hearing about it, or you kind of suck at telling people what it is, or in a very articulate, compelling way, that's going to be hard for those people to have success if they don't know how great your thing is and how easy it is for them, or whatever that might be for your product. And so I kind of got into marketing as I worked with these big businesses, or these, I've worked from everyone from startup to Fortune 500 company. And when you really believe in your stuff, you kind of naturally want to be a marketer. You naturally tell people about your stuff. And so I kind of gravitated toward marketing as a way to ultimately enable more people to have success. And so by being driven by that, I think it makes me a better marketer, because I kind of have more empathy for users. I have genuine, it's not just a money grab. I actually care. I give a damn if they're going to use the product, right? So I think ultimately that does help with marketing. But that's why I made the switch from kind of climbing the corporate ladder and merger and acquisition land and all the systems that scale and operationally on the back end, to marketing.
Yeah, I like that. I speak to, I'm one myself. I speak to a lot of marketers who made that transition from technical to becoming marketers, particularly in marketing technology, where that transition has happened. I think it's interesting though, because you must sit on that cusp where if you're developing a product, we've all been in that situation as marketers where you've got the development team thinking we're going to win market share by adding more features. And they're wondering, why the hell have we got a marketing team? And then you've got the marketers going, we need to sell what we have on the truck and get this out there. And I'm an evangelist for this thing. It's amazing. Yeah. And you've got the developers going, yeah, but I just need one more feature. And that would be, how do you balance that? Well, as a marketer, I mean, you've worked on both sides. What's your view?
You have to know your customers.
Yeah.
You have to know what's important to them, because we've all talked about, and you've been involved in product launches when you're doing the MVP, right? The minimum viable product.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? That doesn't mean shitty version A. Right?
Yeah.
That means being able to release something in something that your customers, your audience will find tremendous value in.
Yeah.
That's really what it means.
Yeah.
So when you know your audience intimately, when you're not afraid to speak with them, right? Don't be the man or woman behind the curtain, right? We have to actually get out and speak with our audience. When you know them intimately, you know what's really going to help them. That makes it a little bit easier to kind of solve the feature war, right? The marketing versus product development. And because I have been on both sides of it, I think it makes it a lot easier at Hello Audio to know where to invest your dollars, right? I mean, startups say
exactly.
You only have so much resources, so many resources to invest. So do you invest those in marketing, or do you invest those in product development? Ultimately, your audience can help you know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I like that. And too many times when you talk about MVPs is the focus on the minimum and less on the viable, right?
Yes. It's like Lord, we've all seen that. I think we've all paid for that. Oh my.
So, I mean, as a techie, have you ever gone to the development team when you've asked for something and gone, look, if you don't do it, I will? and they get scared when somebody from marketing says, what, you can code?
So not at Hello Audio, only because we have an amazing development team, but in other businesses, oh yes. Yes. And hey, I'm going to fix this so it's actually pretty. What do you mean? Oh, I know CSS. Like I've done front end development. I can actually do this, which is slightly terrifying, I think. And granted, I am a little older than the new developers coming out of college these days. So they kind of look at me and they're like, what language? COBOL? I'm like, that's funny. Fortran 77? Yeah, funny. Funny, guys.
Oh man, yeah, but you'd make a killing. I mean, they can laugh. I think at the moment, if you're a COBOL developer, I mean, my father was, and I think I think they're trying to drag everybody out of retirement because so many banking institutions still depend on those systems, don't they? So I think you'd make a killing. You'd be far better off learning that than CSS at the moment.
True, so true. You can go to Fiverr for CSS. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We've touched on this a little bit. You're in a startup, and like if you put just your marketing hat on among all the other hats that you own and clearly own, I mean that in the strongest sense of the word, is that what advice would you give to marketers who are working with startups? Because it's a different kind of culture, isn't it? It's a different way of working as a marketer. And like you say, we've both done this. We've both worked with startups. Well, What would you say? What advice would you give to a marketer who's walking into a startup as a role?
I would say lead with empathy.
Yeah,
I think, startups, I've worked with every size company
yeah,
imaginable. Everyone has different budgets, everyone has different assets that they're starting with.
yeah,
And so, we all, as a marketer, we have to be flexible.
yeah.
And at the end of it, we're all on the same team. Right?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's it, 'cause I've worked for corporations where it hasn't felt like that, where it
yeah,
hasn't felt like we're on the same team,
yeah,
and at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want our
yeah,
customers to be happy, we
yeah.
want the company to be profitable, and we
Hmm.
wanna be proud of what we put out into the world,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, really, at the end of the day, we're all trying to get those things to happen.
yeah,
Sometimes we have to make compromises, and if you're a marketer who has maybe experience with one size company over, just
yeah,
understand it's gonna be different,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
have to be flexible with
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and really leading with empathy is the best way to
yeah.
really understand it's not about, marketing versus tech or
Hmm.
marketing versus
Hmm.
leadership, it's we're
Yeah.
all on the same team.
Yeah, what I've found, I've been fortunate to advise various size companies, and I recently was working with a smaller client, and I find that as a marketer, if you work with big corporates, you're in one piece of marketing, right? And
Mhm.
you're helping with the cog in the big machine. But when you're working with a smaller organization, you're seeing marketing in the raw, aren't you? You can
Yes.
see a definite link between the activities you're doing and the revenue that's coming in and the fact that it's keeping people employed and how important that is.
Yes.
And for them, marketing is genuinely an investment. They have to consider if they put these dollars into this, it has to have a return. I think that have you found that in your career as well, that it's quite. I mean, I would give anybody advice who works in big corporates, if they can get an advisory role with a smaller organization, you get back to the core
Oh, hands
elements of
down.
marketing. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's
yeah,
no waste. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
and I would say because 'cause you've seen it in corporate too, where there's
yeah,
just more waste and somehow
yeah,
that's tolerated, and it's
yeah,
interesting coming from startup land
yeah,
where you're looking at the dollars
yeah,
that are invested and like,
yeah,
you're really genuinely looking at ROI
yeah,
because the waste could mean
yeah,
someone's job,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for
And
sure.
it's the and how much runway you have
Yeah,
as a startup. I
yeah,
mean, realistically, that's what it means, and so you're always looking at the next best step.
yeah,
What's the best place to invest this? And so all of a
mm,
sudden now you go from someone else's money and you start treating it like your own money
yeah,
as if it was
yeah,
your own household budget,
yeah, yeah,
right? You know how much money's coming into your household. And so
yeah,
do you want to go,
yeah,
spend thousands and thousands of dollars on something that maybe
yeah,
isn't going to benefit that household? I
yeah,
mean, that's kind of feel like sometimes that's what some of the corporations, bigger corporations do, but as a startup,
yeah,
you really do need to be a lot more thoughtful and intentional about what you're
mm,
doing with your
mm,
marketing. And that's
yeah,
kind of what makes audio so great
yeah,
is because just because it costs less than most people think. I mean,
yeah,
you look at
yeah, yeah,
podcasts. I mean, if you look at the editing of audio,
hmm,
it's so much simpler now that they
yeah,
have a whole bunch of amazing
yeah,
tools like Descript and
yeah,
all the cool stuff out there
yeah,
versus the production investment that you have to make on video and some of the
yeah,
other things.
yeah,
That's actually one of the reasons I think we've had so much success at Hello
yeah,
Audio in the last year is because it's rapid content creation, it's
yeah,
rapid testing, and
yeah,
it doesn't really cost that much money to get your
yeah.
voice out there.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I mean, it does take investment now, and I think it's like any kind of content form, is you have to commit to it. If you're creating
Yes.
a blog, a podcast, anything, you have to commit to it. So many people try these things out; they do 5 or 6 episodes or something like that, and then they're like, "Oh, this isn't working for me." Well,
Yes.
sorry, mate, it's a 2 year gig, or a year or whatever it is that we need to give it. We need to do that. So I like the way you brought it back to audio. Anyway, so we're back to audio. Very neatly done. And as we're coming up to time, I'm going to ask you the final question. So we have a regular feature on Rockstar CMO called the Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool, named in honor of the old rock stars that used to throw things into hotel swimming pools. It's our portal to health. All the BS, snake oil, and overhyped trends this craft of marketing we love throws up. What would you throw in the Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool?
Oh my god, there's so much crap I'd like to throw in this swimming pool. Oh, so many things. Oh my goodness, coming from this space of the crazy internet marketing swamp,
Yeah.
so many things I'd like to throw. I think one of the biggest ones for me, though, that kind of tends to push my buttons
Hmm.
are this intense fear based marketing shit.
Really?
This
Yeah.
And I know it works,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I look at the people who that's the only
Yeah.
tool in their toolbox.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I look at their marketing and every single thing they put out there is fear-based crap.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how, I'm a consumer too,
Where's the
right?
joy?
Where's the joy? Like,
Yeah.
tell me, do you really want to sell your stuff from a place of fear and lack and
Yeah.
scarcity? And
Yeah, yeah.
no,
Yeah.
really? That's the brand you're going for? I guess
Yeah.
I could do without all of that. I mean, there's so many things that's probably a big one. I'll give you a bonus one just because it's also something that drives me crazy. Um, the fake webinar crap.
Yeah.
Why you're not live? Everyone
Yeah.
freaking knows you're not live. Why are we treating people like they're not intelligent? We all know this is not live. Can we
Uh-huh.
stop pretending and just be adults? I feel like it's honestly, I feel like it's like, where are the adults?
Yeah.
Why are we not marketing like adults
Yeah.
here? Why are
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
it's like when your kids lie, "Did you brush your teeth?" "Yes." "No, you didn't." "I know you didn't." It's why just be honest about it? It
I love
drives me nuts.
I love this. And also, I mean, the sad part of what you said is that this stuff often works. And it's like, yeah, I know it works. I just don't want to do it. I just don't want. It's like remarketing. It's like a lot of what people want to throw in the pool when I talk to them. And some of it really does work. And you're like, but can we not do it? It would just be nice.
Yeah, can we just take a break? Can we
Yeah.
pause the fear
Yeah.
break? Can we just do an experiment where we
Yeah.
just put it off to the side for a
Yeah.
little bit? Can we
Yeah.
try something else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like all this sort of um, hustle porn, all this stuff that you see
Oh,
where everything's got to be so, it's the opposite of fear, but it's the same thing. It preys on your emotions. I had a little
it's
pause there.
true. Well, the thing that drives me nuts is most of my coaching clients will say, "Oh, I'm behind." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"That's shit.
yeah,
You're being made to believe that you're just behind."
yeah, yeah,
And so that's why you're being felt like
yeah,
you need to buy stuff. It's the hustle, it's the please don't sleep,
yeah.
don't have, all of the things
Don't
and
watch
you're behind.
Netflix. Yeah, yeah.
Don't enjoy your life. Please don't. Don't Why are we spending time with your kids? This is not part of the business plan. It's insane to me. And these God
well,
bless all the people that promote that stuff. Oh,
well, well, I've loved this, and it's been splendid to meet you, Nora, and have this chat. Now, if the listeners want to connect with you and they spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you?
I love it. So I'm on Instagram at Norah Sudduth. You can find me at norahsudduth.com. And
Mm,
I'm all over Hello Audio. So if you go to helloaudio.fm and sign up for a trial or just use the little chat bubble in the side of the site, you'll be able to reach me there as well.
that's splendid. And I will, of course, include all the links in the show notes. It's been an absolute pleasure, Nora. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Same. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you, Nora. I enjoyed that. Using podcasts and audio as part of our regular lead nurture or customer engagement, great opportunity there for us, especially if, to my earlier point, helps build their intimacy and differentiation. Good stuff. Right, it's Friday evening here. It's time to close down Teams and stop by the Rockstar CMO virtual bar, grab a cocktail with my friend and content marketing guru and chief troublemaker at the Content Advisory, Robert Rose, and find out what's on his mind this week. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend. It is good to see you in the bar. Wow, it's crowded in here tonight. There seems to be some sort of, I guess it's, what do you have, like a mariachi band playing here in the background?
That is a mariachi band, yeah.
Is it Taco Tuesday? No, it's Friday. What are we doing here? There's a mariachi band, and is that a seal in the corner barking? A seal? It's hard to hear you above all the raucous noise that there is here.
Yeah, amazing.
Anyway.
We had quite a quiet week last week, so I'd completely forgotten of your shenanigans. About your
this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm here to do, is to throw a bomb into the middle of the table and see what happens, and make your Saturdays that much longer. That's what
well, at least this Saturday I'll be listening to mariachi music. So while they just pipe down and the seal
you're welcome. You're welcome is the key there. We have a lovely cocktail to end our week on. One of my favorite is and it's truly one of my favorites out there. Just a simple drink. It is a whiskey sour, and it is, so you get your highest quality whiskey that you possibly can. And I prefer bourbon myself.
Yes.
But really just any whiskey that you like is great here. A little bit of lemon juice, and then I garnish it a little bit with either a cocktail cherry or an orange peel or something like that, just to add that little bit of sweetness to it. And boy, is that good on a cold winter day. That is just fantastic stuff.
That does sound fantastic. And I'm just going to have a rummage around on my desktop bar and make a pretense that I have other bottles here. But I am actually going to... Oh, and did you put ice in that? There's not.
I did put ice in that, yeah.
Probably a big rock, knowing you.
I did. A big rock is exactly right. Yeah. That's when
it comes to yes. I do actually have some nice bourbon, but not by my desk, so I can't go for that. I do have, though, one of the most English of bourbons, Bombay Sapphire Gin.
Yes, that is the most English of bourbons, yes.
In fact, that's the last of it.
The last of it.
So there'll be a different gin next week, folks.
Very nice.
And then a dash of lemon, I think you put in, didn't you?
That's right. That's right.
I've got something similar to a dash of lemon. It's a big dash of cucumber tonic water, which will go into there. Brought to us by Fever Tree, those wonderful people who don't sponsor the show. And I have to give this a sip. Whoa, that's delicious, Robert. I do like that.
Yeah.
What did you call it?
That would be called a whiskey sour, my friend. It is very complicated. Yeah, it's one of those, there's no silent X or anything like that. It's just a whiskey sour.
I could drink a whiskey sour every week.
I suspect you might.
That's delicious. And where might we be consuming whiskey sours, my friend?
Well, I think we should probably go hang out with my good friend, Kathy McKnight, in Toronto. And that would be a fun trip to take just before the holiday to get into Toronto, which is the less New York, as it were, because it's, won't go down. I'll offend somebody from New York or Toronto in the process here. So I'll do neither of those things and just say I love Toronto. I haven't been in a while because of the obvious reason. But I think that's where we need to go, is find a nice little, what is great in, not necessarily, well, you know what, it would be good. It would be good with our whiskey sour here would be to go find some good Japanese food.
Oh, nice.
In Toronto is fantastic. And I think we should go find some good sushi and drink our whiskey sours.
I think we virtually, maybe near the beginning of our world tour of virtual bars, in our escape from lockdown, I think we've had whiskey and sushi in Japan before, but that sounds fantastic. And it'd be lovely to see Kathy. And Toronto is a wonderful city. I agree with you on that one. I think the last time I drank with Kathy was at Oktoberfest in Munich. Very different vibe from a nice class.
Very different vibe, yeah.
Whiskey bar and some sushi.
Yeah.
So when you see her in Toronto, you must say hello.
Yes, I will. I definitely will.
So, Robert, we're here with Kathy in Toronto. What would we be talking about?
Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit about messaging architectures. So messaging architectures is why? First of all, what is a messaging architecture? Well, it's a pretty well-worn path when we start thinking about it from a marketing and brand perspective. It's usually us trying to structure some level of consistency on, how we're saying things, what we're saying, the words we use, so that there is a documented artifact that the business can use to say, here's how we should speak about X or Y or Z. And great, fantastic. So that's why we create a messaging architecture, and many brands have done so. And the interesting thing that I'm finding is that with the sort of rise of content marketing, of thought leadership, of storytelling, well, of course, messaging architecture comes into that as well. Because we all want to have the same point of view as a business, or the same thought leadership perspective, or what we think about the world as part of that. And this interesting tension I've seen arise, which is which comes first, the value proposition or our point of view on the world? Is it the story, or is it our value in the story that comes first? And I mean, I'll give you an example of this, right? So a lot of times I see a business, classic, business sort of approach to this, and they'll say, okay, we're going to create a marketing campaign and we're the best in the world at this thing. And our unique value proposition is that our brand or our product or our service is an innovative player in the space of X. So now we have the leading or the most cutting edge or the paradigm changing version of Y. And so we are now, here's our main value proposition. And so great, we settle that. Everybody goes, yep, that's true. And we go, great, now let's create a story behind that. And we say, yes, the world is changing and that the problem that Y solves is important. So what's our point of view on that? Well, we then build in this narrative that ultimately gets to customers to the point of we're the best at X and Y and all those kinds of things. Think about it like this, right? So think about it in context with like HubSpot and inbound marketing. And it might be that they discovered, hey, we have this marketing automation software solution for small businesses, and it sends email and it builds landing pages. And so how's that different from all the other ones out there? I don't know. Well, because it's cheaper and it's easier to use for SMBs. And we believe that if it can help you get good at creating content fast, you'll get more traffic and thus more leads. And that leads us to come up with, okay, great. The customer really needs to be good at content and search engine marketing to get full advantage of that. We can help them with that. We can educate them to that. What's our point of view? Well, our point of view is that there's a new way of marketing. It's called inbound marketing, et cetera. Now, I have no idea whether they did that or not. But what I do know is that the other way around is also starting to become more common, which is, hey, our point of view is that there's a new way of marketing. It's called inbound. Great. What does that mean? It means that customers need to get good at search and content. Great. What does that mean? It means we should develop a product that basically has, and so on and so forth, right? You start with the point of view and you get to product and features and a unique value proposition, or you start with a unique value proposition and you get to the story. Which one is better, right? Because the clients that I'm dealing with right now are doing it both ways, right? You've got brand people looking at design thinking and storytelling and thought leadership points of view and how it affects the ability to package up services. In this case, it's services. Or they've got other people out in the field coming up with new services and they're trying to figure out what the story is, and they're not connecting those two things. And it's a problem. The key is that you have to connect them. And ideally, now this is me, and remember, I'm biased this way. I believe that point of view is better first. I believe that if you come up with the story, the point of view, the problem, the job to be done, if you like that framework, first. But I know in the real world, it doesn't always work that way. The challenge is that when we've got these new products that people have come up with, that engineers or product development people or whatever it is, they don't often start with that. They start with, this is a great new product and we need to sell it, so let's come up with a story to figure out how to sell it. The problem, and this is the big problem, and the one that we can sort of have a discussion about, is one, if they're not connected, but more importantly is, if we're coming up with a unique value proposition that doesn't comport or agree with the story we've already been telling. In other words, we've had this point of view on the world for 10 years, but now, well, we're changing our mind, right? We have to come from this point of view first. Otherwise it's just not going to be believable. So we have to ask ourselves, why are we establishing this unique value proposition, or why are we coming up with this story? Because we have to believe it first and be able to connect it before any of it's going to work.
And This is more than a one whiskey sour conversation for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
I was working with a smaller client recently, and I kind of was doing like a messaging matrix for them, and I flipped it around and really thought about what I started with was what is it the client needs from them? They're a service business, right? So what is it the client needs from them? And how do they want to feel about this organization, and then work the story from there. But also I've done the opposite, exactly as you say, which is to think about the story that you want to tell and trying to make sure you tell it well. But either way, I mean, you just made me chuckle when you were saying like leading, paradigm shifting. As long as we're not doing that shit, then we're in a good place, right? Whether you take one approach or the other approach, as long as you don't wind up.
If the words paradigm shifting don't appear anywhere in our messaging document, we're already off on the right foot. Yes.
Or even leading. I mean, just, but yes.
Or sure, or innovative, right? Or innovative, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. But now we're going to need another whiskey sour just to talk about all the words we can't use. So where are you leaning at the moment? Which way are you looking? You want the organization to tell their story, right?
I want them to connect it and have an understanding, because the problem I find is not that they don't recognize the need for both, but the problem is the recognition that they need to be connected. Yeah. In other words, what happens typically, at the most tactical level, is that product and salespeople typically go, hey, as soon as I have a clear, unique value proposition, I'm all good. I don't need anything more. And so often they don't go any further than that. They don't actually connect it back to a story, right?
Right.
Marketing and brand people often do the opposite. They'll come up with a story, but then don't know how to connect it to the actual unique value proposition, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem is you have two elements of the business working in a silo from each other on two very distinct challenges, and they don't connect those things. Yeah. So if they can't see the connection, if they don't make the connection, the customer never does.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
it would be the equivalent of basically, think of it this way, it would be the equivalent of Apple saying, hey, listen, the brand people are saying, put 1,000 songs in your pocket and, talk about, the lifestyle of technology and how it helps you dance better and, all those kinds of things like they do with their brand commercials. And then the marketing and sales material all said stuff like, 4 gigabytes of storage, and you will be able to, look at internet connectivity at 2, and that sort of thing. It's like, those are the features and benefits, but we're not connecting it to that brand message.
Yes, absolutely. So, to visualize this, and if we were drawing on the napkin that we've just grabbed from the bar, are you seeing this as kind of like a matrix? So, at one end, whether we start from one direction or the other direction, is the story, and that drives down to proof points of the product and the features and functions, but the whole thing is connected.
It's exactly right. It's a true messaging architecture, right? And it does connect all the way through up, and it's basically, honestly, it's taking classic messaging architectures, whichever metaphor you like. There's the brand house, there's the messaging house, there's all sorts of different ways to look at this in terms of, there's a pyramid structure, and there's, all sorts of things to hierarchical sort of structures. Basically, it's building an extra, it's either building an extra basement or an extra attic, right? Which is, really pulling it all the way through from, we do have a construct that we call the story pyramid, which does take it all the way from, a messaging architecture of a story, and all the way up to a value proposition, for product, and sort of, and you can work your way up or down. We find, again, biased, because it's just the way we work. We find that working your way up the pyramid, in other words, working your way from story up to value proposition, is easier. But we also recognize that it's not often pragmatic, right? Because in many existing old classic businesses, they're still in that classic, we develop products that need to be sold, right? And so there may or may not be, in many of those cases, good, design thinking or jobs to be done thinking in the product development. It may simply be like, hey, we're coming out with a new version of this phone, or we're coming out with a new version of this widget, and it just needs to be sold. And sorry, that's the way it is, right? And so
a bunch of us didn't do any research. We just thought it was a great idea.
Right. That's, right. That's exactly right. And so it's in many ways, and, we again, over much more than one whiskey sour, we can have a debate over whether that's a good business strategy. But as marketing practitioners, we often don't get the choice, right? We don't, the reality of the world is we are often handed products and say, make this work. And that's, that's just got to be okay. And we have to have a way to do that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And there's so many threads in this. But I need to, I guess I need to call time on the number of whiskey sours I'm allowed to have during one podcast interview. What I wanted to do, though, and it's just out of reach in my bookshelf behind me, is reach for managing content marketing and see if that's what you were referring to way back when you wrote that book. But that would be... I don't know whether that would be good or bad, but you're lucky because I'm always referring to it. It's just out of reach, and I want to flick through it and see where it is in that book that you talked about. And
I don't think you'll find it. I mean, you may find snippets of that idea in that book. That book is pretty dated at this point. That book is, I mean, there's some things in there that I'm really proud of because it came out in 2008 or whatever. But I think the book that would have most of this idea in it would be The Experiences, the Seventh Era of Marketing.
That
would really be where we start to look at the messaging and the content and that we're creating much more as importantly as we do our products and services, where it becomes valuable because we're telling a great story.
Yeah, and I've got that book too. I think it's excellent. And so talking of your writing, Robert, and I went down a little rabbit hole there with your book. Where would people find your current writing?
Well, you'll find the current writing at our little hovel on the web at contentadvisory.net.
That's splendid. And when the listener spins a dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you?
They'll find me mostly these days on LinkedIn and a bit on Twitter. So either of those places would love to connect with anybody.
Splendid. And that's Robert _Rose on Twitter. I will, of course, include all your links in the show notes. And most importantly, will I see you in the bar next week?
If you're going to promise another mariachi band, and then we're all good. Yeah, I'll see you next week. Yeah.
Those guys are only here for you anyway, so I'm sure they'll come back.
Yeah, that's right.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, mate. I'll see you then.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, Robert. I started the show rambling on about storytelling, and some great points there from an actual expert. So that's a wrap on episode 92 of the Rockstar CMO Effing Marketing Podcast. Thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. Thanks again to Nora and Robert for joining me and for sharing their insight. Please follow them, say hello, check out their work, and I'll link to all of that in the show notes, which you can find on your favourite podcast app or at rockstarcmo.fm, where you can also find all our previous episodes. So, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? Let us know with a nice rating or review in your favourite podcast app, or share your thoughts with us at Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn. Or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week, Jeff continues his vacation. I'll be chatting with Rebecca Beastman, CMO of Reputation.com, and I'll again be joined by Robert Rose in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar. Until then, have a great week, and I hope you again join us here next week at Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the boys' club of advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.